All right. Well, we've got a good few people on, so we might just get started. As I say, there are a few people who I know registered who can't make it live and are going to be watching the recording. So again, hello to all of you guys when you are watching this back in your own time. But for those of you who are on live, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. For those who don't know me, I think most people here do, but for those who don't know me, my name's Claire Markwick and I'm the founder of Reignite Performance Coaching and the instigator of these RPC Conversations webinars. And I guess the theory behind them, the concept behind them is, you know, we are in, I don't like using the word unprecedented because it's kind of flouted around so much at the moment, but we're really in uncharted waters right now. You know, there is so much uncertainty, there is so much change. And whilst we live with a degree of that on a daily basis, the fact that globally we are all experiencing so much all at the same time for such an extended period of time, you know, is really quite disrupting and can be quite challenging. So I was sat at home thinking, well, what can I do? How can I serve my network more? And I thought, well, I know some amazing people who have probably all got some fantastic insights to share. And so the purpose of these conversations is for everyone to be able to just sit back, take an hour out of their day, grab a coffee and listen to some really interesting people. But more than that, to be able to take one little nugget, one simple little gold nugget away from the conversation that can be implemented straight away, either in their business, in their team, in their role, or just in their family life in general, to sort of help through this process. So that's the concept of it. Amanda, thank you so much for being my first in this series, and I've got some other amazing people lined up. So please stay in the loop and let me know if you want to stay in the loop, and I'll keep you posted. So Amanda and I, when did we first meet? Probably 2, maybe even 3 years ago now. Yeah, Amanda is an experienced HR professional, and we met through our coaching training in Melbourne. And she's been a fantastic friend and support to me over the last few years. And she was the first person I thought of to get involved in this, because Amanda's current role, she's the Director of People and Culture at Emporium Hotels. And yeah, we all know that we've all been impacted so much by this, but the hotel and the hospitality and the travel industry has really been hit really hard. And I know that Amanda has been doing some great work with her team, and I thought it would just be a really fantastic opportunity for her to share some of the initiatives that they're going through and using at Emporium, and what she's bringing from her own consulting experience as well. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
Please just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about where things are at right now.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Claire. It's wonderful to be here. It's great to see a couple of people online with us. But yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the Director of People and Culture at Emporium Hotel. So we are a 5-star luxury boutique property in Brisbane, at South Bank in Brisbane, right on the river. And we are a standalone hotel. However, we are the market leader in Brisbane. We are a hotel that commands a great deal of respect for what is a standalone property, and we are very well awarded. So the brand has been around. I actually was with the brand way back in 2007 when we launched. I was in sales and marketing in those days. I've come back. I helped them open this beautiful property 18 months ago. And now I've actually gone back as an employee to head up their people and culture department. So I'm really excited to be part of what is a brand that's always been extremely close to my heart, and who's also been awarded for delivering, you know, amazing experiences to the guests. So, but as you mentioned, look, the last few weeks, I suppose it's probably been since the beginning of March. The last 6 weeks have been the most emotionally draining of my career. I've never experienced such change in such a short time frame in a industry, and I know that all industries are being impacted by this. However, ours has been hit pretty hard.
It's amazing, isn't it? You know, I know a lot of people, a lot of leaders in a lot of different industries, you know, some in big multinational corporations, some in smaller family-run businesses, and sort of everything in between. And that whilst that we can have a degree of preparedness, if that's a word, we can have business continuity plans in place. I think this has just hit so hard so fast, hasn't it, that is almost resulted in a lot of those plans sort of going out the window. Have you sort of found the same?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm fortunate that I'm part of an amazing, we call out the team, the senior leadership team, the directors team. So we all have a role that has the title director in there. So, you know, you've got your director of finance, you've got a director of rooms who runs the accommodation side of our property. We have a director of food and beverage. We actually have 6 different food and beverage outlets. So, and in addition, and then we have director of sales, director of marketing and comms, and then we have a general manager. So we have a really talented group of people who are all, I've got to say, leaders in the hospitality industry around the table. And what we've had to do in the last, 6 weeks is effectively, look, we had a business continuity plan in place. And that, that covers if there were, a flood, whatever that might be, an earthquake, blah, blah, blah. However, obviously, a health pandemic is something that none of us have encountered to this scale before. And so our business continuity plan needed to be redone in a very quick time frame to actually talk about, okay, what does phase 1 look like in terms of our guests and our people? And then what does phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 look like? So we did that in the early days of COVID-19 when it really wasn't affecting our business at that stage. And yeah, it's been really interesting as a business. We've needed to pivot, and I feel like I got on the COVID-19 roller coaster and we just haven't had a chance to get off. So it's been up, it's been down. The government, the Prime Minister, who I think is doing a brilliant job, has come on the TV every couple of days and made a new announcement, and a lot of those impacted the plans we had. So the plans needed to change. And one of the things that has been good for our business is that we are standalone. We're a family-owned business. Our owners are extremely close to what we do. Our CEO sits in the building. So he has been there, and we've been able to make decisions and literally pivot in hours and then change decisions as we've needed to. And, with 2 goals, our big goals were business continuity for the hotel. We need a form of revenue coming in. But then the other thing was to really create an environment where there are as many employment opportunities for as many people as possible. So we employ at any one time around 200 people, the majority of those being employees. And then we also have we outsource our housekeeping department as an example. So we have an outsourced, people who rely on us for employment is effectively what I'm trying to say. So,
Yeah. Yaja was just saying in the comments there that it's so good that senior leaders are so closely involved. Would you say that's pivotal to any business's success right now, having sort of really fingers on the pulse, really getting involved in everything that's going on?
Yeah, look, I think it's, as I said, we're fortunate that we're a family-owned business. So what that means is the senior leadership team have been able to sit around a table and make some big decisions. And certainly we all come to the table with a different specialisation, and we've all been able to own our own areas, and we've been looked to from our owners to actually come to the table with, well, what do you think will work? But then we've all had each other as a sounding board as well. So it has, my focus in human resources is and always will be the people. So it's, I've had to partner extremely closely with our director of finance. We always do anyway, but, especially with the announcements of these JobKeeper payments and that kind of thing, it's been a huge piece of work just to understand what that means for our team, and then to actually think about how to practically implement something that, to be honest, was only legislated last week. So it's been tricky.
I think that's something that certainly in our earlier conversations, you know, you brought to my attention. It was certainly something that I hadn't thought about. You know, we hear the Prime Minister and we hear all these announcements that are being made, and you know, it's like, wow, this is awesome. You know, this is really great. They're doing lots of things, taking lots of steps to support the economy and keep businesses going. But turning that concept of an idea into practical strategy within businesses and actually making it work. Like, there's a huge amount of work that goes behind that. So
yeah, there's certainly,
you know, and that's, yeah, and that's something that's very I would imagine very draining for leaders to be dealing with, especially when they've got so many people on their teams to be supporting right now.
Well, the thing that was tough in our industry was so we had to make some big calls really quickly. We went from phase 1 to phase 3 within 3 days, thinking that we had a lot longer than that. We thought that would be weeks or even months. However, the tap got turned off on the hospitality industry on a Sunday night. Everyone saw the announcement, as we did live, that licensed venues would be closed from 12 o'clock on the Monday. So we literally had to pivot again and really work out what we needed to do that. So that was mass stand down of 6 outlets worth of food and beverage teams. We are fortunate, we're extremely fortunate that we have programs in place where we work directly with the Mater Mothers Hospital. We have the beautiful Mater Mothers join us if they've had their baby in the private hospital setting and everything as well. They come and join us for a few days before they go home. They have the support of a nurse. So we've got a beautiful program going with that. That continues, and so has provided a level of a foundation of business. But then we also have a number of people, for whatever reason, who can't be in their own home to self-isolate. So we're not a quarantine hotel. We haven't taken people who've just come back from overseas under a government directive. We're literally, so we've got a number of long-term guests who may, for whatever reason, they're building their home and they can't be in their home at the moment, so they're staying at Emporium. And so with that, with them in isolation, we still have our kitchen running because we have our room service or our in-suite dining going. We've had to, we also have residential apartments attached to our building. There's 220 of them, and then there's another 400 to 500 within walking distance of the hotel. So there's a lot of people who have the means to buy in food for whatever that looks like for them. So we have continued to operate, and we've come up with, we have an Emporium market, so you can buy your supermarket products effectively. If you can't get toilet paper, we may have it, so we can do that online and deliver it, or people can drive through. You know, we've come up with some great things. Our chefs have been making ready-made meals so people can have a 5-star hotel meal in their own home. There's been some awesome, really great things like that. However, what that meant is our team of 200 went to a very skeleton team of, at any one time you might have 10 people on site now. So what used to be a hustling, bustling environment is now very, very skeleton. But I suppose, look, when we did that on the turn of a dime, no longer can we open outlets. We had to stand people down. We did have to, unfortunately, make a handful of people redundant. Then JobKeeper got announced. So that changed everything again. So it was almost like we got into this, we think we know what we're doing here, we're going along. It was kind of, the roller coaster had kind of flattened out a little bit, and then all of a sudden JobKeeper got announced, and just like everyone else in the public, we saw it on TV with the Prime Minister's announcement and went, wow, what does this mean for us? How does it apply to us? How does this blah, blah, blah? So immediately we got together the next day, we looked at it all, and to be honest, there wasn't a lot of detail at that stage around how to practically implement what is something that will affect so many people. So it still needs to be legislated. There are a lot of questions around eligibility. Yeah, it's been a difficult one to navigate.
Absolutely. And I think it's really, I mean, your industry, the industry that you're in right now is one that is probably, I'd say, one of the more challenging industries to deal with programs like this, because you would have your permanent full-time salaried staff, you'd have part-time staff, you'd have contract staff, you'd have seasonal casual staff. And, you know, I think sort of looking at the people we've got on the call, there's probably others that have got, you know, sort of more casual staff or contractors or subcontractors working as well as sort of full-time salaried staff. And so how do you manage the needs of such a diverse team?
Yeah, it's actually been really interesting. Yeah, so if you think about the nature of hospitality, one of the things that we celebrate is our cultural diversity. So we have a team of just say 200 at any one time. Of those, look, and I'm just plucking figures here, but I would say a quarter of them are on visas of some kind. So, you know, we have people from around 50 countries in the world who come every day to our hotel and perform a level of, and perform a role. And they're from all over the world. They all have completely different circumstances. A lot of them are here on student visas. So they're studying something. They're international fee-paying students at one of the universities. And then for 20 hours a week during term, they come and join us, and they're a waiter, or they're a kitchen hand, or they work on our front desk. So, or they're a porter. There's so many different roles that they perform. And so what that brings to a work environment is a beautiful diversity. It also brings, it's just such an interesting melting pot of people and experience and that kind of thing. So having to navigate that, especially when the JobKeeper payment for a lot of them on temporary visas is actually something that they're not eligible for. So, and having to navigate that and work with people who often English is their second language to understand if they're eligible, what it means, and to navigate their personal circumstances has been incredibly difficult. And it's been really emotionally draining, to be honest. It's, everyone's got a story. You know, a lot of these gorgeous kids, so they're on student visas or working holiday visas where they come to Australia and they can work with one employer for a period of 6 months. And a lot of these guys are European, so they come here. They're professional waiters, and we hire them in our signature dining restaurant. And they walk in and they're able to deliver that level of service that only the French, only the French and the Italian, you know, Italians have down pat. So, and we've had to say goodbye to a lot of them in the last couple of weeks because they've had to make that tough decision. They're not going to get any government support. We have no work for them simply because we can't open, and they have to go home to their families. And that's been really sad and really, they've been big decisions for each individual. So it's been hard.
I can only imagine, and I know just from knowing you personally, I know the emotional impact that it's had on you as a person, as a leader of these people. You know, what do you think is, what advice would you give to any other leader out there to be, how would they need to be looking after themselves personally to ensure they're able to look after their team? Because I think that's the self-care side of things is so important, isn't it?
It's so true. And you know what, it's all that stuff. It's I had to realize that I can't save everyone. Much as my mothering instinct is there, and you know, my office in the hotel, I have a people and culture coordinator and myself, and we sit in the basement, which everyone goes, really, they put you in the basement? But we're in the basement along with the staff canteen and all of the change rooms, and that's the staff entrance. So every single employee comes past our office to get to work and to go home from work. So we touch base with 100 people a day. Our door is like, it's like Grand Central Station in there. So you're hearing conversations and, you know, people singing in the hallway, and you get to know all of these individuals. And so, there is that whole, I had to recognize that I can't, in the first few weeks, I literally was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to put beds up in the lounge room and have them all come and live with me, kind of thing. But there comes a point where you realize that is not practical, and I'm not here to rescue everyone. All I can do is, I really needed to get back to my core role and how I could empower them with information and with what they needed from an employer's point of view to make the best decision for them. And then
absolutely.
So it was that. And then I suppose from a personal point of view, making time to make sure I wasn't just working 24/7, that I was taking time out with my family and actually slowing down enough to, you know, exercise and do all of those things to try and switch off. Yeah.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Like I've had many a conversation with people recently about you know, the skills of resilience and how we can equip ourselves as people, you know, take away from the fact leaders and being responsible for a team. You know, we're all responsible for ourselves. I think most of us are responsible for a lot of us are responsible for our kids, for our families, parents. You know, there's people that we're responsible for, even if we don't lead a team in a professional environment. And, you know, it's sort of been a real eye-opener to me that there is no like high level super, you know, silver bullet magic pill to what makes a resilient person, what makes a strong person. Like, it really is basic self-care, isn't it? It's getting outside in the sun. It's physically moving our bodies, is eating healthily, it's drinking water. And like you say, it's giving ourselves the time to just slow down and realize that we don't have to fix everything, and we don't have to sort of mother everyone. But for the different personalities amongst us, that can be a really challenging thing to accept, I would guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's actually interesting what I'm seeing, because I have my role at the hotel. I also have a client I support through my consulting business as well, and they work in the IT technology space. And so the difference with them is they're still open for business, but they've moved to 99% of their team working from home. And what I'm seeing is it's actually opened the door to the self-care conversation in a lot broader way than I think the mainstream audience there was actually ever willing to, you know, they weren't willing to go there. Yeah. So it's now people are saying, how do I look after myself? It's, you know, and you see the stats around the increase in mental health issues and anxiety, and phone calls to all of those wonderful services that thank God we have available. But it's an interesting one. I feel like the conversation has now opened, and all of those beautiful soft skills that I've always been pushing with my team, suddenly they're going, oh, okay, we actually get why we need that.
Yeah. I think it's a huge opportunity. It's a really huge opportunity. And, you know, one thing that I would say I pride myself on is not always, you know, I'm not positive all the time. You know, I don't always look on the bright side. Like, I'm a human being as well. You know, there's stuff that gets me down, and I get in quite a low place sometimes, even knowing a whole heap of, you know, human behavioral theory and coaching skills and personality profiling. You know, we can know all the theory in the world, but, you know, like, we're not robots, we're humans. And I think it's really, really important to kind of to understand what drives us. But this is a really fantastic opportunity to get back to basics, isn't it? It's, you know, a business isn't systems and processes and procedures. Totally. And yes, we need all that to put some structure around it. But without the people working within these businesses, they simply wouldn't exist. None of the businesses of the people who are here on the call, none of the businesses that we use in our daily life, they wouldn't be there without the people. And I think this is a fantastic opportunity. You know, you and I are both very passionate about the people and the culture, and it's always been part of what we do. But I think now is a time where it's really bringing it to the forefront for so many more people. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, and I've heard a lot of stories from other businesses in the same industry, in the hotel industry, hospitality industry, who potentially haven't handled things as well as they could have. And there's a lot of chatter about people being in the dark. You know, we're in uncertain times, and my whole focus has been bringing some form of certainty to this team of people who rely on us for their livelihood in a time when we actually don't know what tomorrow looks like either. So it's being willing to almost admit, it's transparent communication is what it's come down to.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of people have felt, especially in hospitality and travel, and I know it's been a really difficult time, but they've felt like they've been in the dark, and that their companies haven't been talking to them about what's actually, are we going to close? Are we not? And often we don't know. That's a question. But I think keeping people informed, whether you know or not, is so important.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. And something that I know is also very close to your heart, as it is mine. It's, you know, we can get messages out there and we can communicate with people, but it's that understanding the needs of each individual person that is on our team, isn't it? And understanding that everybody is different and everybody needs different things from us. And Liz posted put a great point in here saying empowering team members to make the best decisions for themselves rather than trying to rescue everyone, you know, is really great. So how do you as a leader acknowledge and appreciate the different needs of your team, and how have you been addressing that to support, to give the best support that you can under the circumstances?
So on a practical level, I designed a program right at the beginning of all this when we had to stand down whole teams of people, like I'm talking a whole sales team, a whole marketing team, and suddenly they're full-time salaried employees who no longer had any income from us and no longer had any ongoing work. JobKeeper, thank goodness, has allowed us to bring a lot of them back in a reduced hour capacity. And they're able to work from home. So there's one group of people who I'm working with and tailoring messaging and support for that is working from home now in a new way. We've then got another group of people who remain in the hotel and are dealing with their own fears around their own safety and all of that kind of thing that we're communicating with. And then we've also got people who are basically stood down and at home, and there is no valuable work for them to do in the four walls. So there's we've almost had to group them in saying that we put in place a program called Stay in Touch, and Stay in Touch is all about providing connection and support to the entire team, to anyone who wants to, if you know what I mean. It's like an opt-in thing. Yeah. They don't have to take up the offers of support, but if they would like to, it's there and it's very open. They all receive and they all receive as part of that regular communication. So we've tried to create some certainty in the way we communicate, in that every Friday, our general manager, we have a closed Facebook group, so a private group with only our employees in it. And he gets on and does a Facebook Live and updates them on what's happening at the hotel and what's changed in the week and all of that kind of thing. Tries to keep it a bit of fun as well. We then follow that up. And then we follow that up with an email communication. So that's one thing that's creating certainty. They know every Friday we're going to let them know where we're up to.
That's fantastic. I think you've hit on two things there that I think is worth just padding out a little bit more or highlighting a little bit more. In that one, and this is something I talk about a lot at the moment with clients, is we are in such uncertain times, and a lot of the feelings, we'll all be feeling it differently, but we'll all be feeling that uncertainty to some extent. And whilst we can't control COVID, we can't control the government restrictions, we can't control, so much stuff. We can still bring certainty to bring that sort of balance back by doing really small things. And it can be something as straightforward as same time every single week. We know that we're going to hear from our leader, who's going to tell us straight up how things are this week. And I think that is so fundamentally important to balance out all that uncertainty that we're feeling. And the other thing that you said there, which I wanted to pick up on, which I think is bloody fantastic as well, is, someone like me would just, would love the video. I love this forum. This is why I'm sort of doing this series. I love the conversation. I love seeing people, but but there's others that maybe wouldn't get into that so much. And so to follow that same message up with an email, a written email as well, that someone can be like, you know what, I don't want to jump on a Facebook Live with everybody else, but I know that I'm going to get that email information afterwards. I think that's fantastic as well. So kudos to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And then look, other areas of that program that we are posting regularly. So So obviously working from home or being at home because you're physically not at work means that we're missing out on that social interaction as well. You know, we call it the water cooler talk, the lunchroom talk, the how are you, all of that stuff. So we have increased our activity in our Facebook group, which is where we try to create that social interaction. So little things like, I posted a photo of my dog the other day and said, one of the great things about working from home is I get to hang out with this beautiful girl, post photos of your animal. And oh my goodness, we had about 40 different, you know, about out of 200 people in the group, there were 40 different photos of animals and how they're enjoying hanging out with their animal. And then little things like yesterday, it was a gratitude post, and we're just saying, what are you grateful for today? And just getting a little bit of interaction in that way. And so that's kind of providing that social stuff. And then the other thing we're doing regular team meetings over Zoom. So again, it's an opt-in thing. If they'd like to join us, they can. We have a bit of a giggle about what's going on. We do a bit of a brief update, but really it's about connecting with the faces. And I always have an interesting question they've got to answer. You know, what are you really missing about work? Who are you missing? And everyone has a bit of a giggle and a laugh around the table. So that's been a lot of fun, and I think people just really enjoy seeing each other, as you said. It's that, you know, eyeballing someone they haven't seen in 3 weeks that they work with every Friday, Saturday night is wonderful for everybody. So
I think, yeah, it really is. And Yaja just posted a question there, curious to know other ways the hotel has practically transferred their organisational culture to those working remotely from home. And I think you sort of touched on that there. You know, I know from knowing you personally that culture, I think you call it culture by design. Like we know that culture will happen anyway, whether we consciously impact it or not. We are all impacting the culture of the organisation that we work in. So I know that culture by design is something that's very important to you. Can you just explain that concept and explain how that sort of had to tweak and change with having so much of your workforce working remotely?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So culture by design, effectively, I talk about the fact that you have a culture whether you focus on it or not. So why not focus on designing the one that you really want? Why not really get clear about where it is you want it, where you're heading, what's that vision looks like, what's the mission of the organisation, what are we all here for, what do we stand for, and how do we do things around here? What are our values and what do they look like in terms of behavioural standards and expectations for our people? Working in a hospitality team where you have a lot of casuals, it's really, really important that we have really clear expectations for everyone. And we are, as I said, we're a 5-star hotel. We're at the top of our game in terms of service. Little things like we provide uniforms for the kids. So they turn up, I call them kids, some of them are older than me, but you know, for the kids. So they turn up and they literally go to our housekeeping department, to the uniform room, they pick up their uniform for the day, they go and get changed, and we have really strict grooming standards. So when you come to Emporium and you work as part of our team, it is spelt out from the recruitment phase that these are our expectations around grooming. And if you turn up and your hair's messed up or you haven't shaved for one of the boys, we send them downstairs and they can't take the floor until they look the part, you know. So it's very strict. But it's creating it's clear expectations and boundaries around what's acceptable and what's not. Absolutely. And that works really well.
Yeah.
Similarly, at home, I mean, we have still maintained our focus on what our values are as a business. So our values, so one of my, I suppose, personal things is to be human and to recognize the human first and foremost, and then think about the role that they're doing or what they're applying for or what their career aspirations are. So we have taken a human first approach to this whole thing. We haven't simply grabbed a spreadsheet, and certainly there were spreadsheets involved. Don't get me wrong, because you got to look at the numbers, right? Not my strong suit. That's why we've got finance. However, we have, because there are only 200, and I know that sounds like a lot, working with the different department and outlet managers, I do know every single one of them. And if I don't, someone else in my team does. They know their ins and outs. Yep. Do they live at home with mum and dad? Are they on a visa? Are they now struggling to pay rent because their outlet's closed and they're not getting any work and they're, you know, struggling. So what are their individual circumstances and what can we do to support that? So our values are all around communication, family, fun, but also maintaining our standards. And so what we have done is when we say we're going to do something, we do it. And we have maintained that here. We've put in place a program to support them. If I say I'm going live at 12 o'clock on Facebook to tell them about the JobKeeper update, I do that. I always make sure I'm showing up, and then I'm following up. I'm answering those individual messages. And that's that communication. It's our standards. It's the way that we treat everyone like family. And I think, you know, them feeling connected and supported through this time has been, it has been really important.
Absolutely. I think that's it. It really is important, and it shows the importance in having that really solid foundation to begin with, doesn't it? You know, it's, as I say, it's something that you and I are both very passionate about anyway, but it's in a time like this where it's really brought it to the front to show the importance of having that very clear foundation. This is what the overarching mission that we're trying to, this is our vision. This is the mission that we're striving for. This is what we value. This is what's important to us. And, these are the standards that we expect to be in place, and we will hold people accountable to that. And I think, it can seem, to some, it might seem like, oh my God, like, you tell people to go downstairs and have a shave? Seriously? Like, can you do that? Do you not get any backlash from that? But I think when you've designed that as part of your culture, I would say that you probably wouldn't have to do that too many times, I wouldn't imagine, because people would respect it anyway, because they know exactly what's expected of them. And so
100%.
when you've, and people would understand the big picture around that and why that's so important. And I guess that's probably why now you're able to maintain that culture remotely, because it was there in the first place. So given that, here's a question that will put you on the spot. For those that maybe haven't got that in place right now, and are dealing with teams that they potentially can't be giving work to, or are now at home trying to do their job but not quite sure sort of how they're supposed to be going about it, what advice could you give for leaders and business owners in that space? I mean, how can they support a team without perhaps that solid foundation in place?
Look, I think the really important thing, especially if you've got a team that are working remotely, it's getting to know your people. If you don't already know your people, now is a perfect opportunity to get to know them. And so that does mean regular check-ins. So with all of our leaders who are now leading teams that are working at home, the one-on-one check-in and the actual, it's a check on someone's well-being. It's a well-being check more than it is a work in progress check. So we have our work in progress meetings that might be where we're utilizing the Teams platform, which is amazing. So, you might do a stand-up huddle every morning and what's everyone got on for the day? Let's set the tone for the day. That's our work in progress. That's measuring outcomes. That's that kind of thing. What I'm encouraging them to do is really ramp up the wellness check, the well-being check, the how are you going? How's it going sitting at home with you, like me, my husband and 2 kids at home now and about to start homeschooling? What are you thinking? How's that going to work for you? It's actually just opening the door to conversation. I saw a great post the other day by someone who said, we're not working from home. We're actually working from home in a pandemic. This is a different thing. And we're not homeschooling, we're managing these little people who don't know what's happened to their world either. And we don't have our normal coping mechanisms. So this is your output may never be what it was when you're in the office or when you normally work from home. So I think, I don't know, I think the tips would be treat your people like human beings, get to know them, open the door to conversations that sometimes may challenge the way that you have managed in the past, and recognizing as leaders that's okay. And having that self-compassion, compassion for yourself, compassion for your people.
I think you're absolutely spot on. Thank you for sharing that, because I think I'd go out on a limb and say that there are people right now that are just trying to keep shit together, you know, trying to keep that brave face, that I'm in control face, like, you know, just getting things done. I've got to get things done. I've got to get things done, and trying to stay very stoic and very professional, if you like. And I wonder what's happening on the inside. So I think, you know, what I could take away from what you've just said there is perhaps I'd also add, you know, when you say show the human side, it's show some vulnerability, show some, you know, I don't know what's going on either. I don't have all the answers. I don't have my shit together. But know that I am here for you. I am doing everything that I can for you to support my team. And I think that's really, as human beings, that's all we can do, isn't it? That's the biggest thing that we can do.
And look, and I think the reality is tough calls are having to be made. People are having to let people go. People are having to, and it'll keep coming, you know, people are closing businesses. There may not be a business to go back to for a lot of people. We're fortunate with our hotel that we still have our doors open. However, there are many in our direct competitor set who have temporarily closed and no one has work. So we are feeling extremely grateful and fortunate that we're in the position we're in. However, we need to recognize that we're all doing the best we can. And our owners, whoever your owners may be, your boss, whoever that might be, is doing the best they can as well. And we're all human and we're all in this together. And so I think this kind of thing for me in my role has brought out the best and the worst in people. But when I say the worst in people, it's brought to the fore a lot of emotional outbursts that potentially would not happen in a professional workplace under normal circumstances. So I've had to bring a lot of compassion and empathy to those conversations and to let people know that it's okay, that we're still going to be there regardless. And our hope is that when we return to normal, when all this gets switched off and everyone can come back to and go out and dine and go to bars and all of that kind of thing, that we can literally switch the dial. And I know it's not going to be as quick as that, but we are so hopeful that, you know, if we can maintain 75% of our team and they haven't gone and found other jobs in other industries, because a few of them have, and I totally respect that they have done that. But if we can maintain 75% of the people that we started this COVID journey with, we will have done a really good job. And that's what we're hoping.
And I think just wrapping up before we open the floor to any questions that anyone might have, I think, you know, you spoke at the start about always having plans and always having goals and how that's sort of continually changing. I mean, it's always going to do that anyway, isn't it? But right now we sort of spoke about how that's just happening at an exponential rate. Have you in terms of your staff, your team that are now working from home, how has your leadership team's approach to their output changed? You know, like have you always had a focus on outcome as opposed to activity, or has this situation caused that change in perspective? Or how are you managing the expectations of the output of your team while they're working remotely?
It's actually an interesting one because of the nature of our business. There is only a core group of people that are able to physically work from home. So being sales, marketing, HR, my team, and then some of the management at times. So realistically, as a guest-facing business, if someone has a valuable work to do, it's generally they're in the hotel doing that in front of guests. The rest of us who are able to work from home, it's wonderful, but we are teams that are very outcome focused anyway. So that the transition has simply been moving to this virtual world with daily check-ins and refocusing the work. So for example, we have a huge conference and events area in the hotel. And if you can imagine, it's an extremely busy area, and we have 3 or 4 salespeople who look after daily phone calls and event planning for that space. So their world got turned upside down because everyone had to cancel with social distancing and licensing and blah, blah, blah. So now what they're doing is they have changed their focus to be, how can we show that we're still here? How can we remain front of mind? How can we actually show, because we've got really strong relationships with regular clients, how can we show that we care? And what will that look like? So it's almost, they've just had to pivot what they're doing. So rather than saying, hey, that's going to cost you this, and doing an event order and you know, planning your event for next week, what they're doing is just checking in and saying, hey, we're here when you're ready to go ahead. How are you? How's the team? What's this looking like? What else can we do to support? So it's almost a change in the day-to-day task, but the outcome is still the same. It's relationships with our key clients. Does that make sense?
And it does. And I think that's such a valuable, and that's why I bang on so much about the opportunity that this whole pandemic is giving us, because that's now giving that team a perspective on their role that perhaps they might not have had before. And so, you know, instead of thinking I'm just pulling something out of the air, but, you know, instead of thinking, oh, it's a bit quiet now, oh, I wonder if I should, you know, I should do a sales call, I should ring blah, 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 and see, you know, what events they've got coming up. You know, instead of having that mindset going into a phone call, it might be like, oh, I should ring so-and-so, see how they're going, just check in on them. And it's going to develop the relationships, the human relationships, isn't it? Which is in time gonna bring the business in anyway. So I think there's some really valuable skills that people are going to be learning out of this time too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also it's you know, we've had to almost, where usually we may have a strategic plan and this is what we're going to achieve in the next month. It's pulling those goals right back. This is what we need to achieve today. So in the morning huddle, guys, this is our focus for today, and not getting, and just when you've done that, that's okay. Go and have a break, go for a walk. What are you going to do to get outside in the sunshine today? What are you having for lunch? Let's all get together and almost have like, one of my teams is having almost an open mic kind of session at the end of every day where they all just sit there and do their work, but they've got the virtual camera on so they can have a bit of a giggle together, and it's bringing them into bringing that social thing. So yeah, there's some great little things like that happening organically. This isn't me, you know, I'm certainly supporting them by popping into their team meetings and offering tips for working from home and how to structure your day and all of those beautiful things we're talking about. You know, today I'm doing a session on flow state, you know, how to know when you're in flow, and how to manage those tasks where you're not ever going to be in flow because you don't like them, all of those kind of things. But while we're supporting them with that, what I'm finding is what we've done is give the permission to the teams to do whatever they need to do to stay connected and sustain that momentum. And that's been fantastic. It's great to see what's coming out of it. It's amazing.
I imagine the innovation, like that idea that you just said there, that open mic. I'm like, that is so simple. But it's just because everybody potentially is used to working together in the same office or the same space anyway. So it's not like when we're physically together, we're talking and conversing all the time. You know, like if I'm imagining, like if we have Zoom sessions all day, we wouldn't be getting any work done because, you know, we're an hour talking to this person, an hour talking to that person. That's not how it works when you're physically sat in the same space as someone. So to literally to have a Zoom session like this on, but everyone's just doing their work, and you just, you know, pop up and have a conversation, or, you know, someone sneezes, you say bless you, you know, it's like it's bringing some normality back, isn't it? And I think
it is. And it's also one of the things I'm doing with the technology or IT company that I work with. Every Friday afternoon we have a weekly wrap up call, and there'll be about 60 of us on that call, which is a bit of fun. But you know, one of the things we've floated is, do we actually use that as Friday afternoon drinks? So everyone comes with their beer or their glass of wine and sits down and goes, hey guys, time to switch off. It's the weekend. You know, hospitality is a little bit different. We're used to working anti-social hours, but yeah, it is quite it's a great little concept that literally came organically through one of the teams, and they are loving it. It's keeping them connected. So that's
fantastic. I think we'll open the think that's freaking brilliant. Open mic call. Yeah, I should totally agree. we've got just a few minutes left, so I want to open the floor up to anyone watching who's got any questions. Type them away in the chat box. Thank you to all the comments that have been coming throughout. I have been reading them, even though I haven't maybe acknowledged them at the time. I have been reading them, so thank you very much for that. There's been lots of support for you, Amanda, and things you've been saying. Whilst people are typing anything they've got, what sort of closing, wrapping everything together, what sort of closing advice can you give to leaders listening to this who have got teams that are laid off or not working as much, perhaps? How would you wrap up the last hour in a couple of sentences?
Look, I think what's really important is the reality is, it doesn't matter what business you're in, it's the people that breathe life into your business. And whether they are your clients or your internal team, it's about getting to know the human being behind the roles or behind the mask that everyone often shows up with to work. I think this time is giving us a window into people as human beings first, rather than the mask that we often show up to work with, as I just said. So it is an opportunity for everyone to really bring them whole selves to work in whatever form work takes, and to actually just recognize the human beings who work with you and what beautiful strengths they're bringing to your business, and let people do their jobs. It's about, I always talk about, and I read this from some management textbook years ago, and it's something that I always refer to. So every relationship you have, if you can imagine that the relationship is a three-legged stool, and the seat of that stool is the relationship. And then each leg, so you've got three legs, one being trust, one being respect, and one being communication. Now, without one of those legs, the relationship is out of kilter. So for me, focus on building trust, building respect, respecting what people do, what they contribute to your business, how much they've got going on at home, what else is going on for them, and keep that communication really transparent and strong. And if you can do that, then your relationship is going to be stronger at the end of this than it was even coming into it.
I think that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much. There's been, I say, more agreement and more thank yous in the comments. Trust, respect, communication, the three legs of relationships. Yes, thank you, Yaja. Great to sum up. I think that's fabulous. Thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
if there's anybody listening to this that perhaps wants a bit more information about your Stay in Touch program, or can anyone how can people get in touch with you if anyone's got any questions they want to follow up with?
Yeah, well, look, Claire, whether it's via yourself or via LinkedIn, I'm happy to share what we're doing and what's working. I did want to actually just point out, not everything has worked to begin with. We have had to pivot and change as we go continually. So, for example, when JobKeeper was announced, we went out with an email, and it was misinterpreted by quite a few people. So the feedback I got back was quite negative, and they didn't understand. So I then immediately went to our owner and our general manager and said, we need a video call. So we literally jumped, we sent something out in written form. It didn't work. The message did not convey in the right manner. We're going to change that. So the other thing I wanted to say is, we are testing and learning, we're pivoting, and it's just that, as you said, being willing to be vulnerable and go, guys, you know what, we sent that out and that didn't come across the right way. This is what we need you to know. And do it through different forms to meet, as you said, the different personalities, the different needs of the individuals in your team. And when you do that, what they're seeing is that we truly care. And when we show, and Yaja mentioned before something about showing that you give a shit. If they know you give a shit and you really do, and then you back it up with the action to show that you do, then I'm finding people, I think, will be more grateful than ever when we come out of this than potentially they've ever needed to be in the past, which is nice.
Absolutely. I think even when we're on the other side of this, we're not going to go back to the normal that we had before. It's going to be a completely new normal, and hopefully with a lot of the new learnings that we've gleaned through this time. So Thank you again. Thank you to all your comments on the side. I'm going to see if I can save these comments and share them out with the video. So I'm learning the technology as I go. So if that doesn't work, please forgive me. I'll work it out the next time.
I love it.
Thank you again, Amanda. Thank you for everyone who's jumped on live. Thank you to everyone who's going to watch this as a recording. If you've got any questions, queries, comments, or anything that you'd like to share, you know, we're both on LinkedIn. We're both also on Facebook. So just shoot us a message and we can connect and bounce ideas and get in touch, stay connected with each other that way. Excellent. With 2 minutes to spare, I will let everybody go and get back to their mornings with whatever you have planned for the rest of the day. Wishing everyone a wonderful weekend. I'm seeing some videos popping back on now.
Thank you so much,
Liz,
Claire.
lovely to see your face.
Nice to see you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. It's been fantastic. Awesome to see some of you that I haven't seen in ages.
Fabulous.
I know. Wonderful to see you too.
Good. And Claire's got something to talk to you about, Amanda, by the way.
Yes, we will. We'll have another discussion about that in just a moment.
Right.
I'll sign off now and finish this recording. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.